Before we begin today's episode, we want to offer a trigger warning. Our conversation today will delve into a deeply sensitive topics, including alcohol and drug addiction, severe depression, and suicide. These subjects can evoke strong emotions and may be triggering for some listeners. If you or someone you know is struggling with these issues, we encourage you to prioritize your mental and emotional well being. Please take care of yourself, and if you need support, do not hesitate to reach out to a trusted friend, a family member, or a mental health professional. Welcome back, people. Today, we are diving into a deeply important topic that affects so many lives: addiction, mental health, and the profound impact of suicide. It's a conversation that may be uncomfortable at times, but it's one that needs to be had. We'll explore the challenges of alcohol and drug addiction, the complexities of depression and mental health struggles, and the heartbreaking aftermath of losing someone to suicide. Our hope is that this episode serve as a beacon of understanding, offering clarity and encouragement for those who may be facing similar battles. So grab a seat and join us as we navigate this tough but crucial conversation with our guest, Eric Zink. What is up, people? Um, we have Eric Zink in the show in this episode. For those um you know tuning in, Eric Zink, or also known as Mr. Impulsive on TikTok, we have Eric in the podcast. Thank you so much for coming.
Absolutely. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. The reason why I wanted to have this conversation with you is because um this show is all about having a conversation in a lot of things, especially in mental health and addiction. Especially here in the Philippines, we don't talk about or have this conversation about addiction and mental health. So that that's what I got fascinated with your content, because you're truly open to your audience and you're truly open to your experience. So let's let's try and open the doors for the audience here today. Who is Eric Zink?
Um, I'm me. But what got me to be open with it is the fact that there's actually one incident that got me to be
Mm-hmm.
open with my mental health. When my dad committed suicide, he was a well-known doctor, very successful doctor in Michigan, and he killed himself. And during the viewing and stuff, my mom and like my brother were really big on like downplaying that he committed suicide, like not even say he committed suicide, just say, he died by an accident or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And I had lost my wife 2 years before that to suicide, and my dad was a big actual part of me healing with my wife's suicide, some and coming to understanding with it. And I was so angry that they were not willing and embarrassed to talk about suicide. And I convinced them to be open about it. No, he committed suicide. You're like, this literally can help people if you're honest.
Mm-hmm.
And that was what really motivated me to start sharing and being open. So I'd gotten sober 3 weeks before my dad committed suicide. And I stayed sober because I didn't realize the trauma of my dad killing himself. So it was out of anger actually that kept me sober. Anger and spite. And 6 months into my sobriety, I got really bored. My dad killed himself. I'm bored. I'm going to war with my brain.
Mm-hmm.
And I knew that boredom is a big cause for relapse. And I'm with my psychiatrist. I'm having issues with panic attacks and anxiety, trying to find hobbies to do. And I was like, I want to start like a little fun business. So I found one of my salesmen who worked for me. We started this business just as an idea.
Mm-hmm.
And he got burnt out with it after like probably a month. And originally we called it driven. And I was like, man, I'm driven by a cause. What is my cause? Is I want to bring awareness to stuff. So I started sharing about my alcohol addiction and my depression.
Mm-hmm.
And then it just slowly grew from there, me being more and more open about things because I realized the more open I was about things, people were thanking me for being open and honest because they didn't know how to be open and honest. And it kind of inspired me of like, hey, there's actually a lot of people that struggle with this. And that's where it kind of went from there. Um, and why I started being more and more open. And the more and more open I think that you are, the more and more healing it is, the more and more freeing it is. Um, you do get hit with a lot of the stigmas of like, you're doing this for attention or whatever. But if you ignore a lot of that and you're doing it because it feels good in your heart and you can feel how it's helping you to release like this internal pressure, I think there's a lot of positivity and benefits to it.
And that's, I mean, that's beautiful if you think about it, because like you said, the reason why I started this whole show or the whole podcast is it's kind of therapeutic for me. I have my own mental health problems, and having this conversation with a lot of people kind of helps me and helps my mental state, especially when I encounter your content on TikTok. It really resonates me in a way that how truly open you are to talk about these things, because again, you've mentioned earlier there's a lot of stigma, and a lot of people will call you that you're creating this content for attention. But the reality of it, if you zoom out or remove the negative comment, you'll see a lot of people really resonate and really, felt open, because there's some people who are also dealing with these things. It's a kind of a community per se, because yeah,
I,
it's all about, having this discussion, having this thought, and you have a buddy or of a friend that you can reach out and say, hey, I'm having this kind of problem, I'm having this thought. You
mhm.
have this conversation.
Yeah, no, and I think it's really important to have that conversation because I think there's a lot of healing to it. I think there's a lot of motivation to it. Don't get me wrong, I have seen people enabled by their mental health where they're playing a victim to it. I've played a victim to my mental health too. Not gonna lie, I have. But there's been also times that, especially for the last couple of years now, especially, I've been very empowered by it. Of if you want to change it, you have to fight. It doesn't come easy. You don't wake up overnight. There is a process that you go through to find your happiness and to heal and to find coping and to find tools to work through it. It's not easy. It's hard work, but it's worth it. And you have to almost find that motivation to put in the work, and you find people who want to put in the work. And then you also find people that don't want to put in the work and they don't want to change. And that's okay. But you know what? You got to also then remember of who you surround yourself with because after a while certain people can drain your energy from you and you can go back to a bad place really easily.
That is true.
Hmm.
um let's take it back. Let's first talk about the addiction, because here in the Philippines, again, we don't really talk about these things, especially in addiction. There's addiction to drugs, there's an addiction to alcohol, but in all whole perspective, addiction here in the Philippines is kind of a your fault kind of way. Because if we talk about this to other people or in our community, it's all about, oh, they're doing that because they want to feel that way. They do that because something reason that they come up with. But the reality of it, and this is what I learned from your content and from other creators are doing this, is addiction is kind of a, it's not kind of your fault kind of thing, but it's kind of a mental side of it also, because you're fighting the chemicals in your brain that wants all of this alcohol, all of this drugs. So let's take it back on, when did you realize that you have this uh problem, or alcohol addiction?
I didn't really realize I had alcohol addiction or a problem until probably my late 20s because
Oh wow.
I wouldn't admit to it. I mean, I had a problem, but I wouldn't admit that I had a problem. I just like to drink. You know, that was the way that I looked at it. I wasn't, you know, you make the jokes, yeah, I'm probably an alcoholic and stuff, but I would never admit it to it. I mean, I started drinking at 14, and I do a lot of content now with like, especially with like ADHD.
Mm-hmm.
You ever watch my content, I find joy in stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll go on like a year-long tangent on this joy. Well, it went from suicide awareness and all that to addiction to now it's actually turning into ADHD. I enjoy sharing about that now. And the connection between ADHD and addiction, and also the connection between trauma and addiction. So, the fight or flight response in a child does change the development of our brain. And now, this is all proven stuff. The stuff that I talk about, I've done a lot of research on. I've had the help of a lot of, if you ever watch too, I do content with psychiatrists and stuff. So I make sure I have the backing and the factual backing on a lot of this because I don't like to I'll never just sit here and pull shit out of my ass.
Mm-hmm.
And so it shows that your brain actually develops differently when you're in a constant state of fight or flight. That constant state of anxiety, your cortisol levels are through the roof, and that affects the development of your brain. Same with ADHD. And so when I started really doing the research in on this, I realized that, yeah, I started drinking at 14. I was just diagnosed with ADD at the time, which this is in the early 90s. They didn't even know what ADHD was. And when you have this, it's proven that your brain is seeking different dopamine stimulants. It's seeking dopamine. Dopamine for ADHD people calms us down. That's why, like caffeine, they can't get into the exact science because it doesn't chemically make sense still. But caffeine will slow down somebody with ADHD. Caffeine's a stimulant. Caffeine produces dopamine, though. So our brain's always searching for dopamine stimulants. Alcohol can produce dopamine. We want to fit in. We have these we want people to like us because we already know that something's not right up here. People with autism and people with ADHD will drink because it makes us feel what we think the idea of normal is, because it does slow us down. And this is literally when you talk to people, like especially with autism, they'll tell you that alcohol makes them think what it's like to be normal, and you want that feeling. So that's when I started drinking, was at like 14, and it was just kind of socially and recreationally. As I went into high school, it became more and more. And at this time, you're a kid, you're not an alcoholic, you blame stuff on, I'm still young, I'm just experimenting. I experimented with a lot of drugs in high school, um, which is kind of an oxymoron because I was also a great athlete and I was very intelligent too. I mean, I could have went to whatever school I wanted to. End up graduating high school, and in high school, I'd done cocaine a few times. Where I lived, it was probably cut with a lot of stuff. Who knows how much real cocaine was actually in it? Because even back in the '90s, that stuff was cut.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and it wasn't until my early 20s, I was going through a divorce. My first divorce. I've been divorced a few times. Um, and I was drinking. I'd relapsed from AA. It was the first time that I tried to get sober because I thought getting sober would fix my marriage, because that's what like the AA handbook said. It told me it was going to fix everything if I got sober. Everything's going to get better if I get sober. Well, after a couple months, it wasn't getting better. It was getting worse. So I relapsed, and I was with a friend who was an employee of mine, and he was like, "Dude, let's get a bag." I'm like, "All right." I haven't done this shit since high school. And I was at a really low point, very depressed, not happy with my life at all. And I'm sitting in my car with him, and I have a CD case, and we break out a line, and we both do a line. And that line I'll never forget, because that line hit different, man. I snorted up this line of cocaine, and I loved how it felt in my nose. I loved how it felt in my throat, the drip. I love my face starting to go numb. I love that all of a sudden a smile out of nowhere came. And I hadn't smiled in months. I loved that I was no longer depressed. My anxiety just went away. I wanted to go back into the bar and I wanted to talk to people. I was excited. It was like a holy shit moment. And I didn't realize how dangerous and how bad that truly was. Because at that given moment, it gave me everything I didn't have in life at that moment. And that is when I truly believe I became addicted to, cocaine. And it wasn't this hardcore using of it right away, but it was something that, hey, I'm gonna do this from now on. And I remember making that conscious decision. Like this is my drug. I'm gonna do this. And ever since then, it was a massive part of my life up until I got sober.
Wow. I mean, how did you like pass it all with all
How,
of that experience? Yeah. Like how did
yeah,
you like pass that phase?
how did I pass the phase?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, how did you move on from that phase? From okay, I I'll start going to AA, or I'll stop doing this thing just to help me, just to help my mental health. So how did you get how do you have the courage or the willpower to do it?
Oh, the willpower to get sober. I got sober because at the peak of my addiction, I was so an 8 ball of cocaine is 3.5 grams. I'm not sure what the conversion rate is for because we're the only ones that do grams and ounces and stuff. But so if you do the conversion rate of 3.5 grams, that's what an 8 ball is. And I was doing 1 to 2 of those a day. And that's a lot of cocaine. And I was drinking 2 to 3 fifths of vodka. So that's 750 milliliters, I believe, if not more. I'd have to look. I haven't looked at a fifth in a long time. And I had a job that was paying me $40,000-$50,000 a month. Wearing Rolex watches, money wasn't an issue. I was blowing $13,000-$15,000 a month on my addiction. Didn't
Wow.
fucking matter. Didn't matter, man. I had the money. Unstoppable. I hated my life. Hated it. But on the outside, it looked like I had the life of lives. And when I tell my story, I always laugh when I see people in the comments that are like, dude, this guy was living his life. Like, I'd do anything to live that life. No, you're in my shoes, you wouldn't. Because every single day I woke up, I wanted to die.
Wow.
The reason I don't own a gun is I knew there was a part of me that if I owned a gun, I was going to blow my fucking brains out. I would have killed myself. I don't even question that. I would just have had one night super fucked up, super drunk. I would have loaded that motherfucker up and I would have just pulled the trigger and painted my brains all over the fucking wall. Not a second thought about it. It's how much I hated my life in the process of this. So lonely, so just in the pits of despair, hated my marriage, hated just everything, man. I would drive on the wrong side of the road, hoping I'd get pulled over so I could get a DUI and go to jail. And maybe that would be a wake up call for me because I couldn't stop. I didn't know why I couldn't stop, but I couldn't stop. And I ended up losing that job, end up starting to lose my marriage, end up starting to lose everything. And I realized then that why does this happen? And it was like, man, every time this has happened in my life, there's only one thing that's been a constant every time my life grenades itself is alcohol and cocaine. And I just had this moment of clarity. If you talk to anybody in addiction, will tell you, dude, when we're massively fucking addicts, like hardcore addicts, when we are the most fucked up, we have these moments of clarity where we're sobbing, fucking doing lines of coke or smoking meth, whatever it is, sobbing, fucking in so much pain, going, I need to clean up. And we have these moments of clarity where it's like we would do anything to get sober. And I had one of those, and I said, fuck it, I'm going to do this. And I woke up the next day and I was like, I'm going to fucking do this. Fuck this. And I had so much anger and rage in me that that's what pushed me to do it. And it became a battle. It became a struggle. Um, and that's how I ended up getting sober. It
Wow.
wasn't, it wasn't, per se intentionally. It wasn't intervention because I don't believe intervention works. Um, it was literally, I wanted my life to end, but I wanted it to begin. Um, all of this that I wanted to be able to do. And I gave it everything I got, and I ended up staying sober.
Wow, that's amazing. I mean, again, thank you for sharing that, because not a lot of people have that courage to, you know, share it to a lot of people, especially in this platform, because
Yeah,
they have this like stigma, or not stigma, but perception that if they try to open this stuff, they'll have more people criticize them rather than, encouraging them. Like for you, how was it your first or your first video or first content to decide, okay, I'll post about this, and let's see what it gets.
honestly, I didn't fucking care.
That's good.
That was and not a lot of people have that personality.
Mm-hmm.
And I understand why a lot of addicts and stuff and people with mental health don't share. And I also, it's the same reason why addicts also can't get sober because of friends and family. Friends and family will never help an addict get sober, ever. And there's a reasoning behind that. Same reasoning why addicts, especially in the beginning of sobriety and for a while in sobriety, don't talk about it. Because friends and family can hurt us, and we can hurt them. We love them. We don't want to hurt them. And so our avoiding of hurting them is when we become liars, cheaters, and manipulators and stuff to them. And we know if we share, they can hurt us just like we can hurt them type deal. So we don't share because we don't want to be hurt by them and we don't want to hurt them. And there's that stigma that goes around it. And I was at the point that I just didn't care. I was so mad at, I didn't realize I was almost driven by trauma. If you want to know, I
Mm-hmm.
mean, I lost my wife in 2015 to suicide. She killed herself. And we were separated at the time. We were both very codependent addicts. We were both alcoholics. I loved snorting shit up my nose. It didn't matter what I put up my nose. Cocaine was my drug of choice. I didn't like to snort meth, but if I had nothing to snort, I would snort fucking Xanax. I would snort Adderall. I would snort whatever I could. Just I loved the feeling of shit up my nose. It was part of my obsession. And she ended up killing herself. And she was my best friend. And I loved her. And I always will love her. But we had our own demons. And when she killed herself, I didn't know how to handle trauma. And I didn't realize I already had a lot of trauma built up.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I think everybody has experiences in our childhood that creates trauma. It's just a part of life. I don't think trauma is an excuse. I don't think trauma is a reason. I think trauma is something that has to be accepted that, you know, our parents did the best that they could. And yes, they probably fucked us up a little bit along the way. And so whatever they fucked up is our responsibility to fix for how we want it to be fixed. That's just my belief.
Mm-hmm.
So I had a lot of abandonment trauma already. And now my best friend just killed herself and left me. 10 days after my birthday, she committed suicide. And it was, the world went numb. There wasn't pain, it went numb. And I remember driving out because she lived in another state than where I lived at the time because we had separated. And we separated because I knew if we stayed together, we were so toxically codependent that I was going to come home and she was going to be fucking dead. I was going to be dead. Like, we could not stay together. It was not healthy. So I left her with her mom and stepdad. And so I was driving out to see her and I just started drinking. And my addictions about a month after that went through the roof because that's how I medicated through it. I didn't address the trauma. I didn't address any of the pain. I just numbed it all and I ran from it all. And, you know, then my dad ended up committing suicide 2 years later. And I attempted suicide a year later after that. And it was like, I just stopped giving a fuck. And I was like, if people judge me, they judge me. But if it helps a dad come home one more time to his kid, like it's worth it. And so that's where I think I really found the motivation just to be open and not care. But I also did it slowly. I didn't just bombard with all like this trauma dumping and just
Mm-hmm.
dumping of, but it started off, you know, with alcohol and with, you know, making sure you take your meds and going from there and just slowly increasing as you get inspired.
That is true. Let's uh take it back to in your childhood. Like, how's your childhood like? Like,
Right.
there's a lot of trauma or a lot of
There
pain.
was a abandonment trauma, but I had a great childhood. My dad was a very successful doctor. I never struggled for money. Any of that. Anything I wanted, I had to earn. Like, I had to pay my parents if I had bad grades. I literally had to give them money. Like, I had very high expectations. But work was everything for my dad, so I didn't really have a dad. So I was raised by my mom in a sense. Um, I know what it's like to be forgotten at like babysitters. I know what it's like to be forgotten at the store because that would happen to me. And so I just little did I know that that started to build up these beliefs that I'm not that important, that I am forgettable. All of this started to build up, and I learned to lie to therapists. Tell them that I'm okay or tell them I'm fine, when in reality I'm not. I knew how to sugarcoat stuff really well. So I mean, that's essentially what just started these core beliefs in my life at a young age that I was never proving wrong, which I think helped create a lot of that trauma of just because I think trauma is thrown around in a lot of senses. I think that there's different types of trauma, very extreme trauma, but there's every incident creates a belief or a memory in us, especially as kids, because we're very impressionable. And so I just always had this belief that I was, maybe not that important, that people will leave me, people will forget me. When my wife committed suicide, it just added to it that love people leave me.
Mm-hmm.
And then 2 years later, my dad commits suicide. What was it? 4 days before my birthday, my dad killed himself. People always leave. And they don't really love me. They're going to go at some point. I had this huge belief of that. Um, it took a lot of therapy to unravel these core beliefs and to prove these beliefs wrong. um, but I think that's how trauma is formed in a lot of cases. Um, And so it was just one of those that it took a lot of just therapy to unwind and to realize that you can grieve, to realize that you have the right to be upset, and to really take control back over of your life.
Wow. Um, during during those days, like, how how did you how did you uh move forward when you got the news that your wife killed herself? Like,
Oh,
what's your emotion?
I cracked open a beer and I started snorting lines of coke. That's how I
Wow.
medicated through hers.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that's when my addiction went through the roof. About a month after my wife killed herself, I didn't address the trauma much at all. My dad helped me a lot through it, so I wouldn't like drive off the road and into a valley. Um, but I couldn't really handle it. And so I started drinking more. That's where I got to at least drinking a bottle to 2 bottles a day. And I started doing Coke because I was drinking so much that Coke made me feel good and it gave me the impression that I was sober. And so it allowed me to continue to kind of function as an addict. And so I just started massively doing cocaine and alcohol for a good almost 2 years straight, nonstop.
So you basically like ignored the trauma, put the
Oh,
trauma
absolutely.
at the back of the side, then do your thing,
Yeah.
that sort of
Oh,
thing.
yeah. Oh, yeah.
Like, why though? Because that's one of the reason why there's a lot of people questioning those things or those action is the why part. Like, what went into you and say, all right, I'm gonna get 2 bottles of alcohol, then a line of coke. So why?
So the why is like with this example, like somebody you love commits suicide, you don't know how to feel, you don't know how to react. There's a lot of numbness, and numbness isn't good.
True.
When you're numb and you don't feel anything, you all you want to do is feel something. When you're a guy, there's that stigma that you're supposed to be strong.
Mm-hmm.
You're the male. You're supposed to be the strong, hold it all together dude. And I didn't know how to handle any of this. I didn't know how to handle or even talk about her suicide. To even acknowledge really her suicide. I didn't know how to do that. but I didn't feel anything. So if I drank, at least it gave me a little bit of feeling. Maybe I'd feel good for a little bit, and then it was a depressant, and then I'd cry, whatever. And it took more and more alcohol to give me that feeling. And then it took more and more cocaine to give me that feeling because my tolerance started building. And all I wanted to do was to feel but not feel at the same time. And it was an escape. It was a way to not be left alone with my thoughts in my brain. So it drove me into this thing of why not, to the point that I was physically dependent on it. You know, if I wasn't drinking, I started shaking. I started going through withdrawals the next day. And so it's hard to explain this weird obsession that kind of takes over. And you feel that it at least makes you feel something, and it stops the pain and avoids the pain, but it allows you to deal with it at the same time. And that's the insanity of addiction. Addiction doesn't make any sense. You
Mm-hmm.
know, why would you do that? Like, I look back at a lot of the stuff I did and be like, why? And what part of my brain was I thinking that this was worth it? But at the time, it makes so much sense because it's just numbing everything, and it's giving you what you maybe think is happiness, or what you think is a good feeling. Um, when in reality it's not. And then you start creating so many problems in your life because of it, that you start using even more to escape the problems that your addiction's creating for you. And now, to avoid the stress of bills and avoid the stress of relationships and everything else that your addiction started to destroy and work, you're using so that you can forget about your bills, and you can forget about work, and you can forget about, you know, your relationship. And that's the scary part of addiction.
How long apart does from your wife till yourself until to your dad committed suicide?
Almost 2 years to the date. They were a year and 20 days apart.
Oh wow.
No, excuse me, a year and 14 days apart.
So how did you process when your dad committed suicide? I mean, it's gonna be rough because he's the one who's beside you during those dark days, and now when you heard the news, or you heard that he killed himself, like, how did you process all of it?
So because I didn't live around my parents either when this happened, I lived more than half a country away. Um, and I remember getting the call from my brother telling me that they found my dad's body and he killed himself. And I just went numb again. I was 3 weeks sober, and I was talking to my dad like every single day during this process. And I talked to him Friday, and we were laughing on the phone, and everything seemed normal on the phone. And because I was talking to him about almost every day, I was like, "Hey, I'll talk to you on Monday. I'll let you go for the weekend." So I was just like, focusing on not harassing my parents at all that. And I got that call Sunday night, and it was numbing. It took me a long time to even attempt to process it. I was just like, my brother called me. It was, the time didn't make sense because I lived on the East Coast, and I was a 3 hour time difference from them, or the West Coast I lived. I was like, my brother's not up this late. Like, this isn't, something's wrong. And so I actually had this weird feeling that my dad had like a heart attack or something. And when I picked up the phone, he was like, "Hey, dad committed suicide, killed himself." I'm like, "Fuck." And I just went numb again. Didn't really know how to process it. Um, there's a lot of anger and stuff there too. Um, and yeah, very just blank, numbing feeling of like, are you fucking kidding me? And I think it's so much of a shock. It takes your brain a long time to try and process that. Because I even remember at the viewing, I was so angry at him at the viewing, I wouldn't even touch him. I remember just staring at him. I barely even looked at him because I was so disgusted with him. I'm like, what the fuck? Like, how the fuck could you do this, motherfucker? And then I felt guilty for being mad. I felt guilty for it. Like I shouldn't feel this way. You know, poor dad, he was struggling. No, it's fucking selfish, motherfucker. Like I loved you. You were my dad. I would have been there with you if you would have told me. But I didn't understand a lot of the feelings and a lot of what I was feeling. And again, didn't even go to therapy. Just stomached it all in. And I turned a lot of that frustration and focus into my sobriety because I was 3 weeks sober. And I was like, I'm not going to fucking fail. I'll show you, motherfucker. I'll show you that I won't. Because my parents had been with me. I was trying to get sober since I was like 23. That's the first time, like I talked about, I went to AA. And so to my parents, it was just another part of the process. Eric's going to try and get sober again, whatever. It's like, fuck you, I'll show you. And it wasn't until 5 years into my sobriety that I went to trauma therapy and actually started to address this shit.
Oh
And
wow.
that was the biggest healing of all for me. Um, was to learn that it's okay to be angry, to learn self love, to learn self worth, to start undoing a lot of these beliefs that I had, because it fucked me up in a lot of ways. Yeah, got sober, did change my life around, and did a lot of great things. But also, I was still in a massive amount of pain that I didn't know why until I really went back and I found somebody who specialized in trauma, specialized in grief, and helped me find the resources and stuff that I needed to start really healing through everything I'd been through.
Is this before the time you tried to commit suicide, or this
Oh no, this is
after?
after. This is after. This is back in 2022.
Oh wow.
Oh yeah.
Recently.
Oh yeah. 2 years ago.
So when what th- when did you like started to feel like, okay, I'm gonna end it all? Because let me tell you a story. Because around 2017 was really the darkest days of my life, really. So,
Mhm.
and especially I really thought that in my 20s, I know in my 20s it would be like great. When I reached the age of 20, I thought all that that you will be great, like all of the dreams that I wanted or all the hard work will get paid off. But anyway, so I decided to end it all around December, because that's the final month of my year 20, because I was born in January. So I was planning to end it all that day. What happened was, I got instantly invited to a wedding. So the day that I wanted to commit, that's the day of the wedding. So that that stopped all of it. And from that day on, I don't know why I didn't try it again, or I didn't have this mindset of I might want to end this all. You know, there's not a lot of thought afterwards from that. So, uh, on your experience, like, what triggered or what happened that you really want to end everything?
I didn't know where I was at in life. Um,
Shit, same.
I I was it was 2018. I just left another job. Um, and I was actually unemployed for like 2 weeks or whatever as I was finding another job. And I'm like, dude, is this all that life is? There has to be more to life than this. And apparently there isn't. And I'm just a burden to everybody. And I really went down that whole route of like, it's not going to get any better. This is like literally all that life is. This is worthless. This is pointless. I understand why they wanted a way out. I want a way out. It's hard to explain the pain that you feel. There's still a lot of emptiness in there from losing them. It was a lot of just, it's not getting better. I mean, I'm a year and 1 month sober. And I didn't realize how much cocaine messes with like how your brain produces dopamine, which is essentially the happy chemical in your brain. And I was still having trouble getting happy over anything. And I was struggling. And I was just like, fuck this. I'm done. I'm done. I don't want to do this anymore. I don't want to be a burden to anyone anymore. Everyone's life will be better off without me. They won't have to worry about me. Less stress for them. Like I was just selling myself on this left and right. So finally, the point I'm like, fuck this, I'm doing it. And you're just wearing a fake smile the whole time, just pretending everything's okay. And inside, you're like, okay, how am I going to do this? And then I decided how I was going to do it. And I was going to hang myself. So I didn't have a fucking gun. If I would have had a gun, I wouldn't be here. That would have been easy. I would have just walked over, pulled it out, and blew my brains out. And it didn't dawn on me that I could go to a gun range. Because if it would have dawned on me, because I get intrusive thoughts still. I'm not gonna lie. And my intrusive thoughts had went to the point now. Every now and then they'll be like, dude, you can always go to a gun range and get like the end range where there's the wall and just blow your brains out against the wall. And so I was like, I'm gonna hang myself. That way I can't prevent it. And I won't interrupt. All I need to do is hang myself. This makes total sense. So I found a part in my garage that I could hang myself that held my weight. There's already a hook there, like literally test weighted. I mean, I jumped on the fucking rope that I was going to hang myself with. It held me just fine. My wife came home for lunch that day, made her lunch or whatever. She left. I laid out a tarp, laid out some bleach and a scrub brush because I knew I would probably rip out chunks of my neck because that's usually what happens when someone hangs themselves. They try to get free at a certain point. Just natural survival skills kick in. That's why you can't drown yourself by holding your head underwater. You naturally gasp for air. Um, and laid out my suicide notes, hung up the thing, and I had there's a bottle of vodka that was in our freezer from a party like back in April, so months ago. And I was like, okay, I'm gonna have one more drink, man. This will give me the needed boost I need to walk up these steps because I already laid out. I had the step ladder out. Went into the freezer and pulled out that fifth of vodka, and my wife had poured it out and put water in it and froze. And I was so pissed all of a sudden. I was like, that fucking bitch thought I was going to relapse. What the fuck? And my brain shifted from wanting to go kill myself to, you motherfucker didn't think I was strong enough to keep sober. I got mad. And then
Wow.
it was enough for the clarity to kind of kick in and go, what the fuck are you doing? Like you literally right now have everything out and we're just planning on walking up that and hanging yourself and dying. What the fuck? Like something is not right. So I called my mom and I said that something's not right. And I called my wife and I told her that something's not right. And I just started I knew that something wasn't right. And then I got back into therapy. I got back on my meds and stuff. Realized that, medication does have a little bit of a role. Um, yeah, and yeah, that was my attempt back in 2018.
Wow, not a year long between us, because when you're telling this story, it's kind of liberating in some sort that I can share you and you can share this kind of stories, because I felt it like when you decided to want to end it all. It's like it's kind of relieving in a way that, okay, they're not gonna stress out anymore about me. They're not gonna be thinking about me anymore, because they're better off without me. That's what I'm thinking during those days. And my clarity kicked in during those wedding that I got invited to, because I'm gonna be with my entire family. I'm gonna it's it's kind of a clarity for me when you're bonding with your family and seeing all the laughters, all the saying jokes, all all the fun memories that you you told, the same stories that you told earlier during your younger days. It's kind of a clarity for me during those days. And right now it's kind of a liberating in some sort that there's people who are felt or have this feeling that
Mm-hmm.
that they that I have.
Mm-hmm.
So I think this is one of the reason why it's important to have this discussion, have this conversation, because when we talk about mental health in some way, it's kind of not sacred, but more on a shish type of conversation. You know what I mean?
No, it really is. I think depression really isolates you a lot because you have so many conversations in your head with your depression that nobody understands. Like the funniest thing is like, and this is why like I don't do a lot of hands-on stuff anymore. I used to be very hands-on trying to help people, and I don't do it anymore at all, unless you pay, because I found money keeps you honest, um, and it keeps you honest for a lot of reasons. But there's a period in time that I really wanted to like just I wanted to save the world. That was actually really unhealthy too. But I found that depression sets you up for failure because someone will ask you how you're doing. You're like, "Oh, I'm doing okay,"
It
and they're
really
like, oh,
is.
"Okay, cool," and now that person walks away, and your conversation with your depression in your head goes, "See, they didn't fucking care. If they would have really known you." And you said that you're okay, they would have been like, "You're not okay. What's going on?" They don't really fucking care. So you're just a burden to them. They don't fucking care about you. They're just using you. I mean, these were the conversations that we have in your head that, I've reached out for help because I told somebody I was okay. No, you didn't reach out for help, motherfucker. You didn't tell anybody. And that's why I truly believe if you want help with depression, you want help with what you're going through, you have to truly want it just like you want sobriety. Because the one fail safe way that you can truly get help if you're struggling, truly get help. And you have to be prepared for it. And you can't be fucking lying to yourself or to anybody else if you do this, because this will get you help. You tell 10 strangers that you don't fucking know on the street, wherever, in a grocery store, and you go up to them and say, "I am depressed to the point that I'm going to go home and kill myself and I need help." These people don't know you. They can't judge you. And I guarantee out of those 10 people that you just fucking told, seven of those motherfuckers are going to be calling 911, sitting with you in the dark until the light fucking comes. But you better be prepared for it, and you better not be bullshitting. Because if you're just seeking attention, guess what? That shit ain't going to be flying right now. And
True.
that's what I think sorts out, unfortunately, there is this huge stigma of people that are attention seeking. And I've met a lot of those people that it's okay to attention seek and it's okay to need attention. It's okay to need love. You're struggling too, and that's okay. But tell them what you need. I need attention, mom and dad. I need attention, babe. I need attention, husband. I need attention. I need your love. And let's find out what that is exactly together through therapy or through whatever. But instead, we don't do that. And then we're like, oh, I'm just going to go kill myself. I'm going to do this because we don't know how to tell someone that we just need love or we just need attention.
At the same time, I think most of it comes from overthinking, because like you've mentioned, like there's a lot of conversation in your head about these things, but the the thing that most people don't understand is when you have this conversation in your mind, it's like hundreds of people are talking all at once. You really don't have that clarity to think clearly, to think, okay, what's the proper way to do it? Because for me, I I don't know if I have the courage to, but I think I ask for help so late that um it feels so not so right, but it feels so awkward in a way, or feels so weird, because when you ask for help in a way, people treating you differently, which is that's one of the things that I hate. And I think that's one of the reason why I don't open these things to a lot of people. Because when you open these things, or open about your mental health, people, or a lot of people, especially in your family, will treat you differently, like you have something that, you know kind of a sickness to it. Like they start to treating you differently. They try to, like, baby you in a way, that sort of thing. And that's
Mm-hmm.
what I most hate about it. But yeah, having those conversation in your mind, especially like your mind is in overdrive.
Oh yeah,
And
no, your brain's in overdrive, and the worst part is it's exhausting.
truly
You don't
is.
want to you don't want to share anymore because you've exhausted all your energy, all your battery on your thoughts. that now the thought of telling somebody is just fucking exhausting, and I don't have the energy anymore. And I'm just tired. And that was my thing of like, I didn't want to be a burden to anybody. I didn't want to be any more of a problem to anybody. I'm going to share with them what they're not going to be able to solve my fucking problems. And I'm just fucking tired. And I don't want to be tired anymore. And I just want this done. And that's really where I'd gotten, because you exhaust yourself. Depression's exhausting mentally, because your brain doesn't stop and you're mentally constantly just going at it. So I think it halts us in so many ways from reaching out for help.
It truly is. And the weird part of it is, like you've mentioned earlier, that you want help, but your brain's kind of dictating that you need help, but it can't speak out loud. You know what I mean? Like,
Uh-huh.
in your mind, that you want to, like, ask your parents or ask your best friends to, hey, I'm having a problem about this and that. But what your brain does is trying to deliver it cryptically. Now,
Oh
it's
yeah.
it's gonna be your friend's fault when they can't decrypt it. I think that's what enters my mind when I enter those days.
Oh yeah, no, and that's why I don't think reaching out to like parents and family and friends is all that great, because we lie to them just like an addict does.
Mm-hmm.
We dance around subjects, we sugarcoat it, we aren't fully honest and open. We share just a little bit and set them up for failure. We don't want to hurt them. We don't want them to hurt us. And so because we hold back so much, that's why I think the big difference is like, even when you tell a stranger, you don't know that person. The person can't hurt you. You know what I mean? It's different when, if you were to go tell a stranger a secret versus somebody that you know can use that secret against you, somebody you know can hurt you with it, somebody you know now has something against, all this stuff goes through. But a stranger that you know you'll probably never ever see again, you could tell a secret to, because you're never going to see them again. They can't hurt you. There's no worry with that. There's no stress with that. It's relieving all of a sudden, in fact. And that's why I really believe, when it comes to people that are struggling, a lot of it comes down to finding different support and resources out there and people out there that aren't friends and family, because we hold back so much.
Yeah, true. And I think, when I decided to do this show, like to do this podcast, the first thing that I came through is, am I ready to, to let people see this side of me, this side of yeah, of my mental state? Because, like you mentioned, that it's okay to, yeah, it's kind of good to have strangers talk about these things, but when you let it all public, it's you can't avoid reading bad comments. Just a fact. Like, if you really wanted to, see all the positive comments, all do, but when you see that one tiny comment, that tiny bad comment, it ruins your day completely. Like, how how do you handle it? Because for me, when I tried to, open this kind of discussion, and one bad comment, oh, that that day is ruined, man. It destroys me.
So one thing I do is I don't read my comments.
Wow, that's
and
good.
and I'm lucky that I mean, my platforms are big enough that I get so many comments and so much nonstop that it burns my brain out to even try and read them. Same with like even my DMs. Like I have a person that I've hired that does all of my emails and communicatings and all that for me, even, because it wears on your brain. Um, and so I don't read my comments, and when I do read a negative comment, I laugh, and I literally will disprove it in my brain some way. And it's a funny thing. Like, I'll talk about like my wife now and stuff, and people are like, "Oh, didn't your wife commit suicide?" Yeah, you can learn to re-love. and remarry. Just because somebody committed suicide doesn't mean it's the end of your world. So, I disprove everything mentally in my head and even sometimes out loud of if I do read a comment that's kind of fucked up. And now I just kind of laugh at them every now and then that I see them. Or I realize that, hey, this is why people out there are struggling, especially when I found a lot of joy in sharing about my addiction and stuff. And I get really amped out and people be like, oh, he's tweaking out. He's still high. You don't know me. You don't see this side of me. You see, if anyone ever listened to my stories, they would realize in my experience in life, I've been in sales my entire life. I've ran dealerships. Like I've been in sales. That's what I do. I'm a salesman and I know how to sell. I was a phenomenal salesman. I was very, very good at what I did. I made a stupid amount of money at what I did. And I know that enthusiasm, intensity, excitement like that draws people in. It has a shock value to it. I know that. But people aren't, oh, they want to read into it and think they know you off of what, 60 seconds, 2 minutes. Say you watch 10 minutes. 10 minutes of my stuff doesn't let you know who I am. You have to see me in my house with my wife, with my kids, you know, going to the gym, all the stuff that I love doing, laughing all day long. And people think I'm like living some life of despair. Like, no, I have the best motherfucking life there is, dude. I wouldn't trade this for anything.
And I think that's one of the misconception about it. Like when people hear about the person who has this depression, the one thing or the one thought that they have in mind, oh, that guy is living in dark, sitting around, moping around. But the reality of it, we have a really great life. We have a grateful life. It's just sometimes when small things happens, our brain kind of like um overreact to those things
Mm-hmm.
and it's kind of it's hard to handle it if you don't know how to really you don't know how to handle it in some way in a healthy way.
Mm-hmm. And that's why I don't think a lot of people realize too that depression is a party. And I really mean that. I know a
Mm-hmm.
lot of people that are depressed. I was depressed. I was massively depressed. But you know what? I was having sex with tons of women. I was constantly just talking. I had lots of friends. I was constantly doing drugs. I was out drinking. I making money. Fucking wanted everyone around me to be having a good time. I wanted to go have a good time. You know what I mean? I can go through this whole thing and it sounds like a party because depression can shield itself as a party.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's going to shield this outside world as showing you're having a party, you're having a good time because then it helps mask more of what's actually happening inside. And I don't think people really get that. Like the people that are there's a commercial going around. I don't know if it's over in the Philippines and had these it was actually for mental health awareness and stuff. It was one of the most powerful commercials I'd ever seen that somebody actually got it right. And it was these two guys that were going to soccer games and there's this older gentleman there and he just seems down and out, down and out, and the guy next to him's all hoorah partying and he's cheering on his friend and all that, and eventually one of them's missing and you assume that it's going to be the down and out guy. It's going to be the guy that's missing, but it was actually the guy that was seemed like he was full of life. That is depression because that is what it is, and it's almost like depressed people who are truly struggling will cheer on other people and want to uplift other people and put so much energy into other people in a party and a good time because they don't want anyone to know the pain that they actually feel. And then there's a lot of truth to that.
And I'll add to that uh a lot of depressed people don't want other people feel what they feel right now.
Yeah.
That's why
Yeah.
they're overreaching out. They're over protecting to others instead of having this kind of protective shield for themselves, because
Mm-hmm.
it's really difficult. And I saw the ad. It's really powerful. It
Oh
really
yeah.
it, yeah, I have no words but just wow. Because
Mm-hmm.
when I saw that, I instantly knew that the guy who's celebrating or who's trying to cheer that person, he's the one who's depressed. Because I'm not saying that I'm that person, but I I resonate that person because I don't want when I when I hear my friends or strangers who have or dealing with this or just having a bad day, um I'm I'm always the one who tries to cheer them up. I'm always the one who's trying to uplift them, because I know the pain. I really know how. I really know the struggle, and it's really difficult to do it alone. That's why
Oh yeah.
I'm trying to to reach out for them when when it's my time to be alone. Oh, that shit's scary that quickly. Because when you're alone in your bed at night, especially at night, that thought is running through the roof. When you talk to, or like when we have this conversation, after this conversation, my brain went, did he enjoy the conversation? Did he enjoy with the question that I have? Did really he really enjoyed my presence? Or
Hmm.
have I said something I should have said this, I should have said that, that's maybe that's not the right approach, you know what I mean? That kind
No,
of
because
overdrive.
because I used to be the same way, and that's where literally a lot of therapy even helped me of just finding my self love. So that was one of the biggest things that I don't think we're taught in life is how to have self love or self worth. Because we do, like for me, my biggest struggle and my biggest healing in therapy was to be able to learn to look in the mirror and take away everything. Take away, I do social media for a living now, but
Mm-hmm.
for a long time I ran RV dealerships, and who I was a paycheck essentially. I would make $15,000 a month. That gave me value. What I saw in the mirror didn't give me value. What I could do gave me value essentially. And I had to learn to reverse that to looking in the mirror and going, if I have none of this and it all went away, I still have this amazing person that's looking in the fucking mirror. And that's what it's all about. And it takes a long time to really do that. I mean, I went through a very toxic time with social media. Before my Mr. Impulsive account, I had another account on TikTok. Had a million, almost 2 million followers. That one, um, and I grenaded it and blew it up. I literally made sure it got banned because it was very toxic. It wasn't healthy, and it was like trying to break free of what for a while I identified through my social media, and that's unhealthy as fuck. Um, and so it took a lot of therapy to learn to look in the mirror and love who I see and not what I could do only.
Dude, like, how how did you overcome that? Because I really feel the same way. Like, I see my worth through my paycheck. Because before starting this media stuff, this media company, this show, I also was the head of a startup logistic company here in the Philippines, and the paycheck was good. Like, it pays my wedding, it pays all of my bill, it pays uh everything that I want to have when I was a child. Um, when that shit was done, that shit was over, dude. Like, my value to myself was gone in an instant, because I don't know how to see myself anymore. Because I'm the one who's making thousands or 50,000 a thousand monthly, but when that shit was over, like, I'm nothing. I'm worthless. Like, how did you overcome that? Because I'm asking this for a
Hmm.
personal and selfish reason. Because
Hmm.
I'm still in that phase.
Hmm. A lot of it. So a lot of gratitude journaling helped me. Of like, what was I grateful for? And I had to be, and I made rules to it all too, with the help of like my therapist. That I find joy now in the smallest things, like mowing my grass. I love to mow the grass. I love um, to be outside type deal. So I had to come up with. I did a gratitude journal. I did that for a long time. I still do that every now and then when I start to struggle. Stuff as basic as literally looking in the mirror, and these were all tools and stuff that my therapist had given me, and I thought they were dumb at first. Some of them. Like I'd look in the mirror and I had to cover one eye, and 10 times I had to say, "I see you, Eric." And then I had to say 10 times, "I see you, Eric," with this one covered. And then both eyes, "I see you, Eric," every time before bed. so that subconsciously I could see myself. I had to come up with goals that were just my goals that didn't revolve around anything that I had essentially built self worth around. So I had to come up with goals that weren't financially driven. I had to come up with goals that weren't, social media driven or whatever it was, whatever toxic almost senses of things that I grasped to try and create who I am. I had to come up with goals and short term goals, medium term goals, and long term goals that did not include anything that could provide for me. And, I did also a lot of reading and understanding um, to understand a lot of just like the trauma that I'd been through of now all of a sudden realizing who I had to set up healthy barriers and boundaries around. And it's still a little bit of a challenge. I'm not going to say like it's all good,
Mm-hmm.
but it's a hell of a lot better. Routine is something that actually helped me a lot. Um, I enjoy the gym, so I had to find things that were enjoyable to me that I could focus on. So I have a whole, I mean, I work out like 7 days a week, whether it's outside for a walk or going to the gym that day, whatever that day, is on my schedule. And so it's things like that have brought a lot of self-worth because I can look in the mirror now and be like, hey, I like my body that I'm creating. I like that I'm losing a little bit of weight, and this is all self-worth of money didn't do that. Social media didn't do that. Relationship didn't do that. I did that, and I could draw pride from it. And so, that was some of the stuff that helped me.
Wow, like when I started doing that, it wasn't because I was searching or researching about it, but it came instantly. So uh I tore my ACL around November of 2023, and I got the surgery around January this year. And that, I tell you, man, that time was really dark. It brings back my 2017 days, because other than I can't really move at all because of the surgery, like my mind went off the roof, because financially speaking, that that shit ran off my money, because of, like, having a ACL reconstruction surgery isn't cheap. It's
Mm-hmm.
hella expensive. And
I
during
know.
those days, no, the stress of not having to move, seeing my our saving drain down, like, dude, like my mental health during those days isn't great. When I started doing that, it came instantly around February, not too long ago, but I started to, having these goals. Okay, let me recover from this, or a little step, like, uh let me first learn how to walk again. Then
Mm-hmm.
let me try to s- to jog again. That
Mm-hmm.
small things that gives me gratitude, and at the same time, like, having this thinking of, I'm just grateful and happy that my family is okay, my mom and dad is healthy, my brother is doing great, my wife and I are doing great, my wife is healthy and all. Um but it's sometimes depression kicks in out of nowhere, sometimes while you're out with your family, just having a normal dinner. it
Mm-hmm.
it kicks in without, without um without saying hi. Just,
Oh yeah.
dude, the mental state went down that quickly.
Mm-hmm.
And
And that's how it works. And we don't realize that. That's why we have to be able to speak up when we're in pain, and so many different things out there can set off depression, especially, but people don't realize, even like with the physical pain side of things, um of breaking bones and ACLs and MCLs and all that, of how much depression that stuff can actually cause. um but it's hard, and that's the thing with life, is that it will constantly beat you down, man. Life will fuck you up.
true.
And that's part of what life is. And our ability to stand back up every time it does that shows how strong we are. And I was a really big believer in that. I'm a big believer in motivational things and reading some motivational things. I'm not big, I hate self help. Don't give me a fucking self help book. I'll fucking burn that shit.
Same.
And the reason and this is the thing why I hate self-help books, is it will tell me everything I'm doing wrong and make me doubt myself. And then next thing you know, it's 11 o'clock at night, and I'm like, oh my god, I haven't fucking done enough today. I'm not successful enough today. Oh my god, I shouldn't sleep today. No, no. But give me people who've been through like the shit, the real shit, and got beaten up by life, but they just keep fucking getting back up, and they just keep making progress every fucking time it's fucking knocks them down. That's what life's about, because it's going to constantly hit us and beat us up, and it's how we react to it. That's the whole thing of life, is our reaction to it, of okay, this is a challenge, how am I going to overcome this challenge, move forward, and become even stronger and better each experience.
And um I think that's one of the reason, or that's one of the times where I found your content during those days. Because when I first saw your content around January, I'm still and bedridden. Um, I think one of the first content that I saw is about addiction. In my mind, I'm saying this shit can't help me. I'm not addicted to anything. I'm bedridden and can't move shit. And when you started to when I saw one of your contents like opening depression, that sort of thing, I think that truly opens my eyes and say that there's people are sharing this online and sharing this publicly. Because during those days, like I can't even tell this to my wife. I can't even tell this to my mom. Like um it's difficult sometimes. Uh this around September time, when my aunt passed away, we're so close. And I thought that I've have this closure when she passed. But when I tore my ACL, dude, that thing came quickly as hell. Like I really thought that I have this closure, have this I've moved on from her passing. But that shit came back, and I don't know why. And that's one of the reason, like, you know, that's one of the things that I really want to ask you is, how did you overcome those things, like like seeing or having the news that your wife and your dad like committed suicide. Like my aunt didn't committed suicide, but that hit me a lot. So how, so that's, I think that's one of the things that I got resonated with your content, and I hope that you appreciate and like,
uh,
you know, uh
no, I really do, because I know what you're talking about, and I think the biggest one for me was not fighting the emotions, because I think that's one of the things we instantly do when we start to feel
true.
this way. It's almost like we feel guilty
Mm-hmm.
and we feel bad or something. It hits our brain differently. We're like, wait, we shouldn't be doing this. When you stop fighting that emotion, all of a sudden, that knee-jerk reaction, and you allow whatever emotion it is to come, I think is one of the healthiest parts of it, and it really helps a lot with it. That you have a right to be angry at them. You have a right to be frustrated with them. You have a right to laugh. You have a right to cry. You have a right to be angry again. You have a right to cry some more. Then you have a right to laugh. And when you don't hold back these emotions, you aren't trying to control it, where it's almost like those emotions start to work against you, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Because it is, and it's okay to dwell on some of these and go, man, why am I feeling dark about this? Why am I feeling bad? And I think the biggest question is to ask your brain and ask yourself why. And sometimes it helps even just to journal it out, of like, why am I upset about this? And sometimes you realize, I wish I would have said this to them when they were around.
Mm-hmm.
And you know what I do? I shut it down, and I look up and I go, Dad, you're a fucking asshole. You son of a fucking bitch. I wish I would have told you when you were alive, but fuck you. All right, now I feel a little bit better. Next, you know what I mean? Because
Mm-hmm.
it could be
Yeah.
whatever it is. And we don't know what we're holding back sometimes. And that's why I think it's really important to question our thoughts, because sometimes we just let our thoughts take control of us, and the thoughts take control when we're not asking, why do I feel this way? And when you really dig into, why am I feeling this way? I feel guilty about this, or I feel bad about this. Share it, get it out, share it with somebody. I mean, it helps to let this out for your brain, just to constantly process it and then file it away and put it away for good.
How did, or like, when can you know that you have to ask for help. Like the reason I ask this is when I open these things to my mom while I was recovering from an ACL injury. um what I open I open to my mom because it's just I can't really hold it no more. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
Like
Hmm.
there's there's no such thing like what you know you know when to ask for help. But like for me, there's none of that sign or none of that feeling, but it's just full of burst of emotion that I really can't handle it. That's why I open up to my mom without hesitation, without you know having the thoughts of having maybe she'll treat me differently or do something. But how for you, how did you know that it's time for ask for help?
I know I'm going to hurt myself. A lot of times I don't even
Mm,
know that I need help. My wife and I have become so much on the same page that she will call me out and she'll be like, "Hey, what the fuck is wrong with you?
true.
What the fuck? What the fuck do you mean? What the fuck is wrong with me? Well, you're acting this way." And then I'm like, "Well, am I real? Wait a minute here. Fuck, I am. Okay, you're right. Hold on. That's the thing I think with a partner, especially too, is you if you're open and you have that true communication and validation, knowing that your partner truly loves you, has your back, you have that foundation. Your partner can help you more than you ever could imagine because they're the ones that are going to call you out. And yeah, you might even have your fucking when they call you out. Sometimes you might put your fist up and be ready to fucking go at it. But you have to then realize that, hey, my partner does love me. They're doing this in the best interest. So what are they seeing that I'm not seeing? And my wife has caught me a few different times that I didn't realize that I was slipping. Like one time I hadn't taken, so I take Adderall for my ADHD. And if I don't take Adderall for about 5 days, it now gets to the point that I'm dependent on it. Like I'm honest about that. Like I'm not addicted to it because I forget to take it half the time and I don't abuse it like I did with cocaine. But I take 10 milligrams in the morning and 10 milligrams in the afternoon. And after about 5 days, I start to slip. I start to get depressed. I start to shut down. I start to not become the fun me anymore. And she really called me out the one time, and I'm like, I don't know what the fuck is wrong with me. Like I know I don't feel right. And then all of a sudden, it was like, she was like, "Did you take your fucking meds today?" And I'm like, "No." She was like, "Well, when's the last time you took it?" I'm like, "I really don't know. A couple weeks ago." Oh fuck. Well, got to go get my meds refilled, and it was amazing. I get it back into my system, and then all of a sudden, 3 days later, I'm fucking back to me. But she was the one that caught that, not me, you know. And so I think your partner can help you in a lot of ways because we don't judge each other. We both know what depression is. We both know what anxiety is. Um, and if it gets bad enough for me, and I know that I'm just really isolated, I know I need to talk to people. It just becomes one of those things. And so I'll call up a friend and just start just venting.
True. And you know, like I feel the same way. Like I'm so grateful to have a partner like that because sometimes just a couple of weeks ago, like my wife called me out from I think I've sassy her a bit. Like I'm in a bad
Uh-huh.
mood and I said something that isn't nice, and she said, "What the fuck is your problem, bro?" Like exactly
Uh-huh.
those exact words. Like, "What the fuck is your problem?"
Uh-huh.
And when she said that, like I it feel like I stepped back a bit and said, "Yeah, what is my problem?" Know what I mean? Like I can't
Uh-huh.
sometimes like having those episode. I don't know if I can call it episode, but when you having those like um moments, you can't really uh you don't realize until someone called you out for it. Like
Mhm.
you can be like uh what do you call this angry
Yeah.
for no fucking reason, and
Yep.
it's so it feels great in some sort that having that partner that will call you out and having that moment of step back a bit and see, yeah, what is my problem? Because sometimes, like, you're right. Sometimes you'll put your fist up and said, I have, what's my fucking problem? What's your fucking problem? No,
Hmm.
that tension started quickly.
Hmm. Hmm.
So I think that's one of the reason. I think that's one of the most important part is try and step back a bit. I mean, that's for me.
Hmm.
It works.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Like,
Love it.
so when you decided to go to therapy, how's your experience like? Because not a lot of people have that sort of uh pleasant experience in some sort, and some people that I know don't like to take the medicine because sometimes um this is, I think, the feeling of taking a medicine for them for them is like wearing a mask. It's like wearing a fake mask, a smile mask, and when it wears off, the mask fell off quickly as possible. I think that's one of the reasons why they don't like taking
S-
medicine. So for
So
you,
when it comes to meds, the way that I look at meds, if you were to go to war, would you want bullets? Yeah, you'd want bullets for your gun. Well, that's kind of like what meds are. It's a tool. It's a part of me going to war every single day. If I'm a carpenter and I want to build something, am I going to go to work without a hammer? No, I'm going to bring all my tools.
mm-hmm,
Yeah, I could probably make it work without a hammer, but a hammer makes it a hell of a lot fucking easier. I could go to war without bullets in my gun, but bullets are going to make it a hell of a lot fucking easier. So why not bring everything with me that makes life a hell of a lot fucking easier? I'm not a martyr. It's not poor me. Give me every fucking tool I can to make this life easier, and let's do it. You know what I mean? That's my mentality behind it. And with therapy, was being honest with my therapist. I therapy always failed me because I failed therapy. I was never
oh,
honest with my
so
therapist.
it's you. So you admit that, like, when people, or when you failed therapy, it's like blaming myself because I
Yeah, I
lied.
wasn't therapist. Yeah, I lied to the therapist. I sugarcoated. I didn't tell them everything. I wasn't honest with them. The only time that therapy ever worked for me is when I finally went back to therapist. I made a commitment to myself that I was going to go. I set up 5 therapy appointments, different therapist. I'm going to find a therapist who's going to go to work for me. Happened to be the first one I went to, actually. But I go, and I actually met this lady. And old me would have looked at this lady and went, I don't fucking like you. Because I didn't. I looked at this old lady. I'm like, what the fuck am I going to get from you?
Mm-hmm.
This is stupid. No, promised myself I was going to be honest and open with the therapist, not lying anything. So I sat down with her. Her name was Susan. I go, Susan, I don't know what's wrong with me. I know that something's not fucking right up here. I'm taking my meds and everything. And so I'm just going to fucking just start dumping to you. And I need your help to figure out what is wrong. And I just started sharing and I didn't hold back anything. I shared everything. When she asked me a question, I dug in and made sure I answered it right and honest because this was a commitment I told myself I would do. And after I got done with my first therapy appointment with her, I went, holy fuck. I was taking fucking notes, fucking journaling afterwards for weeks, and constantly started going back to her, just finding out what is wrong. This is where I really dug into all of a sudden realizing that every therapist I've ever been to, I've lied. How are you doing today? Oh, I'm okay. I'm good. No, I'm doing good today. Yesterday was fucked. The day before that was fucked. The day before that was good. Well, what made the other day fucked? Well, this is what made it fucked. Well, how did you feel about this? Well, I was pretty fucking angry. Well, why didn't you correct it? I don't know. Shit, why didn't I correct that? What could you do next time to help correct that? I don't know. What should I do? Well, hey, I tell you what, next time you feel that way, here's an app that's a little bell. Next time that you feel that something's fucked up and you're very angry about it, instead of just knee jerk reaction, hit this bell. It gives it 5 second ring. And then at the end of the 5 second ring, respond. Try this next time. You know what, Susan? I like that fucking tool. I'm going to try that next time. That's how therapy should be. But instead, we just sit there and vent. And don't get me wrong, there's sometimes I've sat with my therapist and just said, hey, today I need to just fucking unload. I need to just dump. I don't even need solutions. I just need to get it out. But then there's some days I sit down and I go, I need solutions and I need help. There's a difference. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But we're not even taught how to go to our therapist to get the most out of our therapist.
Dude, that's powerful. Like, when I hear stories about those like their therapy experience, I I never it never came to my mind that it's it's gonna be you. It's gonna it's it to you to embrace all of this stuff. It must come to you first, because you can go to as much as many therapists as you want, but if you don't really embrace it, or you don't really, you know, uh be truthful to your therapist, oh, that's a dangerous spot, my amigo.
Oh yeah, no, and then you just build this core belief that therapy doesn't work. You know, I watch people
Mm-hmm.
talk about, oh, what if my therapist sends me to a psych ward? If your therapist sends you to a psych ward, there's probably a good fucking reason behind it. Therapists
True.
don't want the extra therapists don't want the extra paperwork. So they're gonna really try their best not to send you to a fucking psych ward. But if they send you, odds are something's fucked up. So be honest, you know? I mean, be honest. Like, you know, my therapist told me, well, if you have a suicide plans and stuff like that, I'll send you a therapist. Well, I have a suicide plan. If I was to commit suicide, I'm going to a fucking gun range. I'm going to get a fucking 9 millimeter, whatever. I'm going to sit at the end of the fucking gun range on the end of the thing and I'll blow my fucking brains out. Doesn't mean that I'm going to do it. Doesn't mean that this is a plan that I'm obsessing about. It's such a knee jerk reaction to me because I laugh about it now and I keep it right there so that I know that it's there. So if I start getting closer to it, fuck, there's something wrong. There's something wrong. We need to go talk to people. You know that, but that's what people don't get. Like they don't get that honesty and openness. You know, and that's where you have to look inside and go, okay, everything in this world I am partially a part of. That I've played some role. You know, it took me a long time. I've been divorced a few times, and at first I was always the victim. None of these divorces were my fault. I didn't do anything fucking wrong. I'm the victim here. Then I really learned to know. Let's sit back and go. What was my parts of these? Fuck, man. I had a lot, dude. How many people have I fucking caused trauma to? How many? Like I have to own this. That is, it's not for us. We're not the main characters of this movie. You know, we
Yeah.
are. And you know what? No matter what, I am somewhat responsible because I was fucking there and I have to own that and that's okay. You know what I mean? We
Mm.
want to push the blame and not take any ownership of anything. And I think that's really, really sad. And I think it prevents a lot of healing.
um I'll ask you a question, but I don't know what's the response gonna be, but I have this question, that when will people realize to take self accountability? Like, when for you, when did you start, realizing that you have to take yourself accountable? Because when
When I
I
almost
started.
lost my wife.
Oh, wow.
So my wife now, we broke up. And when we broke up, I didn't want to break up. It was my fault that we broke up. It was me. And I'm like, well, why am I doing some of these things that I was doing? And I wanted it bad enough. And when you want something bad enough, you're going to figure out a way to do it. And big way to do it is to be accountable. You know, I don't think people ever understand. You know, people will be like, oh, you got to fight for the relationship or fight for this or you got to fight for life. I don't think you have to fight for shit in this world. I think you have to be accountable for shit in this world. And that's what changes it all.
I agree.
Because when I was accountable for my actions with her, I didn't like physically cheat on her or anything like that. But when I took accountability for my self sabotage and then said, "Fuck, this is my fault. Let me work on this to actually change it, not just say it, but show the actions behind it," which is also part of accountability. Is truly fighting for something. You know, my wife saw that and she was like, "All right, we made it through that just fine. It made us a hell of a lot stronger." And I think that's when it all changes when you finally decide at some point maybe something's so worth it that you'll be accountable. Maybe you won't ever be at that point. Maybe you've been through too much and you'll never be at that point. Feel for you. But I say the most liberating fucking thing I've ever learned to do is be accountable. And it's fucking hard. And it's not easy.
Dude, I mean, I can relate, because I have I have that sort of experience also, when when my wife are still dating, and I think we fought a lot around 2018. That's that year, or 2017. And I've always thought, or I've always played the victim role, that you're the you're the one who's destroying this relationship. You're the one who's toxic. You're the one who's doing this and that. But when when she decided to like broke up for real, like like uh s- like avoiding me in a way, dude, the feeling of the fuck did I do? And I started to realizing the pain that I put her through, the potentially the trauma that I put her through. I'm surprised that she married me because of
Uh-huh.
that.
Uh-huh.
And and I think, like you said it perfectly, that I think most people have to find something worth being accountable for,
Hmm.
and not a lot of people haven't feel that or haven't experienced that yet.
Yeah.
Like, it's truly
No,
amazing.
you have to take the ownership, and then there's nothing wrong. That's what makes you grow as a human being. And I think when a lot of us, I think a lot of people, more people than you could ever imagine, play the victim role. We're all little bitches. Poor me, fucking poor Eeyore. Not my fault. It's everybody else's fault. A lot of that's trauma based. A lot of it is we play the victim because it enforces some lie of life that we have a pillar of belief in. And so we can't prove this lie wrong. So we have to be the victim, because if we don't prove that we're the victim, now all of a sudden this belief I have is no longer correct. And it's scary. But when you do it and you start breaking the shit down, you're like, fuck, dude, I'm like an amazing fucking human being all of a sudden. I'm happier. I'm fucking more open minded. Fucking, I don't give two fucks all of a sudden. People wonder, well, how do you get to the point that you don't give a fuck? Is you literally have torn down every false belief in life and you are comfortable with who you are.
That's 100% true, and I can attest to that because I've experienced it as not so much as you, but like similar to you. Like every time me and my father got in the fight, I've always, I used to play the one who's getting abused, or I'm the one, the typical teenager things that, oh, I'm being abused or some sort of shit. But when I started to, realize and taking myself more accountable, oh, I it's kind of a it's kind of a watching a YouTube video with 780, that sort of thing. When you
Mhm.
realize that you have to take yourself accountable, you're like, the whole horizon has been more clearer. It's more
Uh-huh.
chilling in a way. It's more
Oh yeah.
liberating.
No, because I can relate. I mean, I've noticed what you said, that your mom. You've always this whole podcast. You just talked about your mom. You haven't talked about your dad. I was the same
Mm-hmm.
way. And I think especially us as men who are more for our mom, we take more of a victim role in life, because if we're the victim, mom is there.
Yeah.
Mom comes in and mom fixes it. Mom takes care of it. Mom makes us feel good. And I get it, because I trust me, dude. I've been there before, and you have to really then realize that that's even toxic. And mom doesn't always fucking take care of it. And mom actually fucking adds to the fucking trauma sometimes, and we don't even realize that. But it warps everything for us. But it really sets this firm belief: if I'm the victim, I get rescued by this or that parent, in a sense. Instead of going, I'm not the victim here. What do I need to do to take ownership, correct it, move forward?
Yeah. Yeah, that is true. Um before we end this episode, this podcast, do you have like um kind of a message of some sort? Because I'm asking this for a selfish reason, but because I'm still dealing with this while I'm still recovering. um
Mm-hmm.
um what message or what advice can you give to people that, who are still confused on how to deal with this? Because yes, some like for me, I do a lot of research on how to handle this things and that, but the reality of it, when that shit happens, dude, that research went off the roof, or it went off quickly as possible. Like I don't know what to do anymore. So when you're on that phase or that moment, like how can you overcome it, or how can you handle it in some sort of, it won't affect you as much as what it used to?
You have to talk. You have to share. You know what I mean? I still, I, people ask my wife now, doesn't it bother you that he talks about his wife that committed suicide and all this? And she's like, why? Part of your life. You know what I mean? Nothing that you share should be a burden or a hindrance to anybody. And a lot of times we need to share for our brain to process it. We need sounding boards. So I think the biggest thing is when you realize that you're not sharing anymore and you're not talking anymore is the sign that you need to just start talking. When you do talk to people, let them know I'm not looking for a solution. I'm not looking for you to fix me. I just need you to listen and just start fucking dumping, and that alone is healthy. And that's where I think a lot of it begins because our brain's going to come up with its own solutions of what we need to do.
Oh, will do. um where they can find you, Eric?
EricBZink.com is my website. You can find me on TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, Facebook. All my links are there, though.
Dude, again, I mean, I want to say thank you, other than joining the show, but I really want to thank you for all of the content and all of the stories that you're sharing online, because it really helps me, and I think I can attest that a lot of people also get this message and help from your content. It when I congest your content, it's more of a, it's it gives me a solution type of way. You know what I mean? Like it helps me to straighten the things out when all of the problems are in a shambles, and
Mm-hmm.
your content kind of helps it straight the simple, like simple solution. Because I know I call it simple, but when you're in that shit, simple things looks hard, man. It it it, it looks difficult to do it. So thank you for sharing, and I really hope that you'll continue doing this, and I hope that we can have this conversation many more to come. And
Uh,
I'm I'm happy to see you other than this day.
absolutely, man. I appreciate you having me on here.
Right. So I think with that being said, peace out, people.
Later, brother.